Okay, the pregnancy episode of the Ask Me Anything. Pat Sherwood here with my wife, Emily. So, Emily, why don't you let everyone know, how many children do you have? How far along are you? All that good information.
Okay. So I have 2 kids. They're 9 and 11, both boys, and we are expecting a little girl, and we 18. I'm 18 weeks, so next week will be 4 months. The weeks and the months never line up exactly.
And pregnancy seems to be one of those things that there is a never-ending array of questions, and from my perspective anyway, there doesn't seem to be just this one singular golden rule guidance that now everyone knows. At week 7 you do this, but you don't do this. At week 11 this changes. Like, there seems to be some general guidelines, but there's not a lot of agreement out there. So I figured we'd get somebody on who's been doing CrossFit before while pregnant, now doing it again, has some lessons learned. And so let's start. Some more questions rolled in over the night, which is great, and we'll get there. But the first question, I think, was from Eric C.M. Eric, let's see if I can get your question perfectly right, and then we'll run with it. So Eric says, "Hello, Emily. First of all, congratulations on the baby coming. My wife is also 4 months pregnant. Question, is there anything in CrossFit, be it modal domains, movements, etc., that is high risk for the baby's health and development, and how do you mitigate the risk, avoid it, or scale it?" So, should have said this at the beginning of the video. Whatever, disclaimer is needed in 2021, because people just want to blindly follow things without using common sense, please consider this our legal disclaimer. We're not giving pregnancy advice, overruling what your doctor said, nothing like that. That should be just absurd. Emily's just going to speak about what she has experienced personally, and if you like it and what you do with it, hey, the ball's in your court. Now, we're not doing anything there. So for Eric's question, what have you found at this point in any way you've needed to change or modify? And let's start with movements.
Yes, so I'm noticing with this pregnancy that I am having to modify earlier than I have previously. So, for example, I'm not doing double unders anymore. I can do single unders, but for whatever reason, double unders are really bothering my abdomen, so I took those out.
What about jumping jacks?
I could do a jumping jack,
okay.
Yeah, so it's not so much the jumping, maybe it's the height of the jump, I'm not sure.
Something mysterious.
But I think there's just that golden rule of listen to your body. If something hurts, that's your body's way of telling you, move on, don't do that. So I took those out a few weeks ago. I'm not doing any toes to bar, knees to elbows, even a knee lift, like a knee raise. It does not feel good from a hanging position. So I've removed all of those as well. I'll scale and swap and do sit-ups instead. Those don't seem to bother me.
No GHD
yet.
sit-ups.
No GHD sit-ups, no.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. I wasn't a big GHD sit-up person.
I don't think you've tried, or I don't think it's come up yet, but I wonder how a hollow rock or a V-up, if the V-up would be a bit. I did
those, I think, last week in a workout. They seem to be okay.
Okay.
The week before, maybe.
But again, the simple rules, let's say V-ups were in tomorrow's workout, and during the warm she's playing with them goes, oh, that doesn't feel quite normal. You would just, without a moment's hesitation, instantly disregard them and not feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And just, swap in something that does feel okay. The ever popular one for pregnancy, burpees.
So I'm still able to do burpees, but when I go down to the ground, I hit my knees first and then my chest, so I make a little bit like of a
butt in the air.
Because my stomach isn't big enough yet. So when I do that, it's not touching the ground. As soon as I get a little bit bigger, I'll probably go down to like call them a panel mat.
Okay.
The folding mat. So my chest will go onto the folding mat so that I have room for my stomach. And then as that no longer works, I'll move to a bench.
Panel mat, is that some gymnastics terminology? Yeah. The old gymnast coming out. So let's see. So that's thus far about the movements that you've had to play with and modify, and more will be coming, obviously, like you said, as you progress through the pregnancy. So let's see. So far, has your bar path been affected on like a power clean or something like that?
Not yet, but I'm I don't have a very big stomach at this moment in time. It's coming. Just
Do you
not
remember
yet.
previously, did you have to stop doing barbell work like the power clean and do some dumbbell work or something to get around the belly?
I didn't, but I was also pregnant 10 years ago, so it was 2011, and dumbbells were not widely available. So I don't even know that it was really thought about at that time. So I didn't really change much. I'm not sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I did with my last one. I hit 36 weeks pregnant and I stopped working out altogether. Just walking down the driveway, I felt like it was a disaster. So, and my baby came at 39 weeks. So for about 3 weeks, I didn't do anything. Just walking was hard enough. My pelvis hurt very bad. So
Listen to the old body.
yeah.
Okay, what about pull-ups?
I can still do pull-ups. They still seem to be okay, again, for this moment in time. So I'll keep doing them until it doesn't feel good.
And then, not having been pregnant, but having somewhat of an idea about modifications and scaling, I would think if pull-ups or kipping one day appears to either not feel good or you don't want to be off the ground swinging around, the good old-fashioned ring row
Yes.
would treat you fantastic.
Yes.
Another one that's a classic question. Box jumps.
So I'm still doing box jumps. I don't do rebounding box jumps anymore.
So you step down.
Yes. I feel okay. Again, I don't have a stomach yet. I really haven't gained any weight, so I don't feel unstable or off balance or anything like that. I know that at some point that's coming and I'll stop doing those. Not so much the act of jumping that would be harmful to the baby or to myself, but if I were to miss and trip and hit my stomach, that's where, things would get very dangerous.
And I think that's the smart little nuance, but important nuance, which is exactly that. You might want to analyze a movement and maybe you still feel okay in what are the broad mechanics required to do that movement. So yeah, I actually still feel okay jumping and landing feels okay. Well, great, but then you have to at some point factor in the what if. Okay, well, what if it doesn't go well, and what if it's that one out of every 300 box jumps that you just catch your toe and land awkwardly on the box? And at some point, different for maybe each person, the answer is going to be, not worth it, I'm done, the heck with it. And, okay, so you're not going to maybe get as much of a metabolic punch if you stop doing box jumps and you start doing box step-ups, but you'll be okay. You'll survive. You're still moving your body. Fitness will be achieved. So let's talk about loading. Have you had to significantly scale or modify loading either from how you feel or you don't want to have to tense your midline that much or anything?
So I stopped going really, really heavy as we were trying to get pregnant. So I'm not doing like massive 1-rep maxes and haven't for quite some time. But as far as like using a 95-pound barbell or a 65-pound barbell, that has all been okay. I just, if my heart rate gets too high and I feel like I'm at that point where I'm like gasping for air, I'll set it down and make sure that I can get my breath before I pick it back up again.
And that kind of leads into the intensity part, which is I've been working out with you, and I've noticed before you would just, before you were pregnant, you would just politely and quietly continue working out and crush me in the workout. And now there are these wonderful breaks, that you have to take to make sure that your intensity doesn't get too high, the breathing doesn't get out of control. That's when I try to pull ahead, okay? Because I still figure if I get her, even though she has to rest, it's still a win for me. I'm going to count that in the win category. And sadly, I have not been even winning workouts. But is that just a gut feeling? Like, hey, I don't feel like I'm at a conversational pace anymore. I'm going to tap the brakes? Or how do you, when you slow down?
It is my understanding and the advice of my physician that especially during the first trimester, that overheating can be very dangerous to the fetus. So just like if you were to get a really high fever or something, it can cause some issues, especially in the first trimester. So I've just always stuck with the rule of thumb that if I can't have a conversation, at least to some degree, that I need to change what I'm doing. And it hasn't been easy. will never forget when I was pregnant with my last one, the open was happening, and I, of course, went into the gym and did the open with everybody, and I ended up placing like, I don't know, top 20 in the world in one of the workouts, and I remember the gym owner was like, you're going to have to start like 3 rounds behind everybody else, because my mentality sometimes is I just can't turn that off. And even when we work out together, you will start to try to pull ahead of me, and that competitive nature just wants to kick in, and I want to like keep up, and I know that that's not where I need to be right now. So I have to make a very conscious effort to make sure that I'm breathing and that I could talk, and to move slower than I think that I need to move.
Working out casually has never been a problem for me. I'm very happy taking breaks. I'll let somebody pull ahead. Go ahead, you get it. Go get him, Tiger. Next question that got a fair amount of upvotes was from Vivian. Let me see if I can track down where that is here. Okay. A lot of women stuff in this question, so I'm just going to read it, okay? It's from Vivian. It says, hello, Emily. Hope this question isn't too personal. Have you found... There's like 3 parts to it, so I'll read the first part. Have you found hormonal fluctuations during menstrual cycles, I guess before and now during pregnancy, that negatively affect exercise training and performance capacity? So that's part 1.
Okay. I don't have a great answer for this question. And I think some of that stems from the fact that, I was training 6-7 hours a day at 13 when I started my period for the first time. And obviously that continued. And then I went to college, and you just can't take days off because you don't feel good, or because you have cramps, or because you have a headache, or because you're tired.
Back in the day, the coaches didn't care.
No.
Right?
No, and they don't, and I'm sure they still don't, especially in college if you're being paid to be there. So I think there's might be days where I don't feel that great, but it just doesn't matter. You just keep doing what needs to be done. And I do not have heavy menstrual cycles. They're not out of whack. They're not very vicious. So that might play into that as well. So no, I don't.
Second part of the question, let's see. It kind of piggybacks onto that. Vivian says that she listened to one of Julie Foucher's podcasts that had a doctor on there, and the doctor kind of mentioned, if a woman can understand how she feels on different days of her cycle, then she can start dialing it in and really personalize her training. And Vivian was curious if you've ever pursued this or know of anybody that has.
I don't.
That's a short answer is no.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah, we've got nothing for you on that one. And then the last part of Vivian's question was basically asking if Emily has any female athlete specific tips that you could share. And when we heard this one last night on the couch, the initial answer was no. But then as you thought about it a bit more, things popped into mind, which is, we kind of scratched down of, consistency, real food,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
This probably isn't female body specific as far as hormones and that is concerned, but I do think that there's a lot of really bad health and exercise information out there as specifically targeted towards women. I hear it all the time when I talk. People will want to ask my advice, but then they want to argue about what something they read or something they heard. I would just encourage you, especially as women, because we are bombarded with a lot of really bad marketing, to keep training and to eat real foods and remember why you're doing what you're doing, that the goal is longevity and health for a long period of time, not just for today.
And you also mentioned, and I think that plays into both men and women, but yeah, I'm sure women get hit with it a bunch because of the just aesthetic pressure that women are under far more than most males are in society. And whatever, when you're talking to the other moms, it happens to be read the latest fill in the blank, flashy article, clickbait headline, whiz bang program, 20-minute abs, whatever it happens to be. And then they ask Emily, who they look up to for physical capacity, what do you do? And the answer of which I've heard my wife give is relatively unpopular because it's not the sexy, flashy answer that happens fast. You don't pop a pill. It happens through hard work every single day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and eating real food. And I think all of us know that deep down, men or women, but you just so much want to hear that, well, I read this article that this can happen in a 30-day challenge. And it's like, that might, and you know what's going to happen on day 31?
Right. What happens after your 30-day challenge is over? And that just goes into the bucket of don't overcomplicate things, especially for those of us with young children. And I just had a flashback. Remember, you're packing a diaper bag. You've got all these snacks and toys and everything for your child to try to keep them entertained for 1 hour while you get in a workout. Don't try to fill your mental capacity with a bunch of stuff that you just can't do it all. So get your workout in, make it as intense as you possibly can on that day, which might not be the same as yesterday, and get out of the gym and move on. It just doesn't have to be so complicated.
Yeah, we did scratch down, when you and I were having a private conversation last night when the world wasn't watching, and we're speaking freely here, but, we obviously speak a bit more freely on the couch, of, there's just some garbage out there that women hear on a regular basis, and one of them was, you'll hear in popular media just like, hey, ladies, you've got hormones, things are going on, so just accept the fact that as you get older, you're going to get heavier and fatter. Just accept it.
Drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. That's one thing, like, you're just going to get fatter when you get old, and people just shrug their shoulders and say, oh, okay. And it does not have to be that way, and that's not true. And the other one that drives me crazy is you'll never get your body back after you have a baby. Also not true. You can. It might not be exactly the same, but I can tell you that after I had my second child, my body was better than it was before I had my first. So it is certainly possible. You do not have to fall into societal norms. You can do hard things.
And again, as somebody who's never been pregnant, I would just have to assume it's just what most people don't want to do, which is really hard work for a long time, full of discipline and sacrifices of avoiding certain sweets or treats or making different decisions. And if you actually have the mental fortitude to go down that less traveled path, you probably stand a really good chance of getting your body back. But your body's just not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. It's going to require a lot of effort, and it's really easy to avoid the hard work.
It's daunting to think about. It's one of the things that I think about, especially. I'll be almost 40 by the time this baby is born. I'm not naive to think, oh, it's going to be just like it was 10 years ago, and it's going to be a lot harder. And I know that the year following is going to be challenging to try to get, myself. And for me, it's about, I want to feel comfortable in my own skin. The following summer, I want to feel okay wearing a bathing suit and feeling like I've gotten my energy back. And I want to feel like myself. So I know that year is going to be tough.
All right, a real quick non-pregnancy question, then we'll slide back in, but it is a parent with kids question. So it's related is what I'm trying to say. This is from Chris L. What's your view on children being multi-sport as youngsters or specialists?
This is a good question. I see both sides of this, because when it comes to my boys, I want them to play as many sports as long as they can, because I very much see the value in each sport kind of playing off one another. You learn certain skills in certain sports. I also think it very much helps with the burnout factor and injuries. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, if you're a pitcher, I can see where your shoulder, might start to really show some wear and tear if you're playing fall ball and spring ball. And for the boys, that's something that we've kind of held pretty strong to, is if you want to play, then you get one season. So you can't play a fall and a spring. You can't play fall basketball and spring basketball. You just get to pick one, and then we're going to move on and do something else. That being said, I did one sport my entire life.
So you were the specialist.
I was a specialist. I did the same exact thing and nothing else from the age of 4 until I was 22.
Which was gymnastics, in case no
Right.
one knows.
And gymnastics is a very different sport. I think there's 4 different events and they're all so different. It's almost like 4 sports in one, and there's so much to learn and so much to perfect, and it just unfortunately takes the time. So if that's the avenue you want to go and you want to be good, you can't be a gymnast, a great gymnast, and also play basketball on the side. You just can't. There's not enough hours in the day. So if our next child came to us and said, this is something I'd like to pursue and I'm really good at it, we'd have to have a conversation about what that looks like. And I think it also depends on what is your end game. What do you want to do? I knew by the time I was 8, my coaches knew, my parents knew, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I had a shot at going to the Olympics. It was very different than just showing up to a Parks and Rec team for fun for 1 hour. So I had a specific goal, and I was willing to put in the work. My family was willing to support that work. When that didn't quite come to fruition, a college scholarship was sitting on the table, and so I just needed to ride that out. And at that point, my parents had invested a lot of time and money and energy, and they were really hoping I would go that route as well. So
this is a bit of a rabbit hole, but I like to get in at least one per AMA. And we were chatting about this in the car last night, driving around as we were chatting about these questions. And it was a little bit when gymnastics came out and how it was tough to have quote unquote a side gig, or another job. And that went down the road of how much, and that's because it takes so much time and repetitions and skill buildings and foundations to just do quote unquote simple things in gymnastics, not even complicated things. And that potentially could be something which is lost on some CrossFitters, and that's kind of one of the Linchpin. We're always hammering how important the fundamentals are, and that you could spend the remainder of your years just working the fundamentals, but there's a lot of this intense societal pressure or Instagram pressure to jump to level 10 right away, to jump to the advanced stuff right away. And you were saying something as simple as, like in CrossFit, everyone just expects you should have a handstand. You should be able to walk on your hands and kick up into a handstand and do a freestanding handstand push-up. And you were saying, everyone wants to jump to right there as if there's not 75 steps to get there that aren't accomplished in 1 week. What were some of the things, I didn't live that life, that you would say you guys would spend time on to even get there?
Yeah, I was just saying, handstand holds they're really challenging, and I think CrossFit has almost, because we see so many people do it and do it well, has almost made it like everyone should be able to do it and it's super easy, and I very much disagree with that. And if you have a preschooler in gymnastics, you've watched them the first 10 to 20 minutes, and then the last 10 to 20 minutes is probably filled with conditioning. They're doing hollow rocks, and
this is a preschool gymnastics
it's just
class.
It's just your basics where you start. You're doing I guess we would call them in CrossFit toes to bar. Like, you're just doing a lot of midline conditioning. You're hitting those positions that you would want to hit upside down in a handstand, like on the floor, and you're practicing them repetition day after day after day. And as you get older, our conditioning was an hour long at the beginning and 45 minutes to an hour long at the end of just conditioning. That's more time than most of our workouts.
That's like a week's worth of workouts. So you would spend an hour and 45, an hour in the front end conditioning, which is just toes to bar, another midline misery, back bend, like all kinds of stuff. 45 minutes at the end. And then how long was in the middle of whatever else it was you were doing? How long did that take?
Well, practices were like 4 hours in between, because it's like a 6-hour practice.
Okay, so every single day, a 4-hour practice, every single day, an hour of conditioning, aka skills practice, midline, just miserable stuff at the beginning, 45 minutes at the end. How many days a week?
5 to 6.
5 to 6 days a week for years and years and 18 years. And so point being, if somebody in their garage on Monday, Wednesday, Friday practices kicking up into a handstand for 3 minutes and they're frustrated that it's not happening, it's not mysterious as to why it's not happening. Like it probably takes longer than a lot of us would like to give it credit for.
Yeah, and I think sometimes even little people, they just can't master some of the skills, and it naturally weeds them out, and they're like, okay, well, they're not going to be a gymnast. And so some adults might never be able to do handstand walking. You might not ever be able to hold a freestanding handstand. You just might not be able to figure it out, whether it's lack of strength, the wrong body position, I don't know. So, but that does not mean that you are not healthy. That does not mean you are not fit. That does not mean you are not capable. And scaling is always a great thing to do.
I mean, the around the box laps that I do when you're doing handstand walking are absolutely hellacious for my non-gymnastics body. Plenty of work, and they perfectly highlight that I have a deficiency in that area, and so that's just perfect for me.
You're a perfect example. He cannot stand and put his hands above his head in a proper handstand position. He has no business being upside down in a handstand position. He can't do it right side up. We shouldn't be doing it upside down. And the older you get, the more dangerous it gets.
And I did not grow up as a gymnast. I grew up damaging my body in the military and motorcycle wrecks. And today, that's probably why we are so big on scaling at Linchpin and making smart decisions, is because there's a way for everyone to work out together. For example, yesterday we didn't do the workout of the day. We got delayed at Costco. And so yesterday we took our rest day, and today we're going to do that workout that has the single unders, plank holds, handstand walk, and push press. I look at that workout and I have beads of anxiety sweat dripping down my face because, like she said, I'm not good overhead, even with the barbell. It's a struggle for me to get into the position. I know that I'm going to replace the handstand walk with those around the box torture shows, and it's going to be a really hard workout. Conversely, this former gymnast, she was like, hey, when we get home from Costco, can we knock that workout? Like, that's just an easy breezy one. We can just kind of like, boop, boop. Won't even know that we did it. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's a nightmare workout. But both of us, as wildly different as we are from, what we can do with our bodies, we're both going to do that workout. And we're just going to scale it or modify it in some way, and we'll work out together, and fitness will be achieved. And so it's all good. So Chris, excellent question. Erica Sue had a question about if it gets easier. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Give me a sec to scroll here. There was a lot of questions, and it takes a sec to scroll. Okay, here we go. Erica says, I'm curious for Emily, with this being your third pregnancy doing CrossFit, do you notice any adaptations? I guess, does it get easier with additional pregnancies? I'm thinking about having another, and I'm a little older, but did CrossFit with my other 2 pregnancies and found it got easier each time, and each baby was very different in what was comfortable for me.
Yes, in some ways it has gotten easier, but as I was saying at the beginning, there are certainly things that I've noticed this time around that I'm having to scale earlier or stop doing things earlier. So maybe that part is harder, but I was laughing with him. I didn't work out much during my first pregnancy. It was my first pregnancy. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I actually ended up in the hospital. I thought I was having appendicitis, so did the doctor. I was having such severe round ligament pain, meaning my abdomen was simply just stretching, that we thought that something was like very wrong. So that part is easier. My body has stretched out. It knows what it needs to do. And I, with my first, had some unexplained bleeding, and I did end up in the emergency room more than once. And so for that, because I wanted to take the pressure off myself, and I would have blamed myself should have something have happened to my child, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just didn't do a lot. And so I think that the mentality also gets easier. You've been through it. You kind of know what to expect. You know what is dangerous, what is not. Simple things like coffee. I would have never drank coffee during my first pregnancy. Never. I would have been afraid that something bad was going to happen to the baby. I have no problem picking up a cup of coffee. I know that everything's going to be okay. So yeah, I think your mentality just changes. I think you feel okay changing things when things need to be changed and not pushing yourself so intensely. But I mean, it's been 10 years since my last pregnancy, and I feel great.
This wasn't a question that was asked, but I'm curious if you can remember. Well, somebody did mention it as part of a question that we probably won't get to. So pregnancy number 3, safe to, you were an athlete your whole life, so you've been an athlete through all the pregnancies. It's safe to assume on each pregnancy you had a different physician.
I did.
Do you remember, has each physician told you, hey, you're an athlete, listen to your body, good? Has this one said, no, working out's dangerous, don't do it? Like, what has been the vibe from 3 various physicians?
So my first physician I did not care for, and I should have left, but I don't know, I was too embarrassed or just felt bad. So I stuck around. Her and I did not mesh well. I think she was of that old school mentality that you should not lift more than 10 pounds. And she was just odd. She was very odd. So I found a different doctor for my second pregnancy, and it was a male, and he was fine. He was supportive. He didn't like CrossFit because he lost his girlfriend to CrossFit.
Well, that's an amazing story right there.
So he was just like, yeah, CrossFit. But he was supportive of what I did. And then knowing what I wanted this time, I actually did go through a few OBs and ruled some out that I was like, you and I will not work well together. And so my physician now is very supportive of my lifestyle and just said, I will never tell you not to do something because you've been doing this now for so long. What you can do compared to what somebody who's never exercised can do, you're very different. So keep doing what you're doing. And she was like, you know, it will naturally work itself out. When something doesn't feel good, stop doing it.
That's going to make the process in general a bit less stressful if you know you're not going to have this adversarial relationship every time you go in and do battle with your physician.
I think so.
Next question, which was a good one, which we were curious as to whether or not we were going to answer because, yes, we were going to answer it, but it's, you know, a lot of our lives are public, right? I mean, to some large degree, far more than most quote-unquote normal people. But, you know, we still enjoy having some privacy in our life, you know, so we can be somewhat sane, rational human beings. But a question from Angela brings up something that we didn't really make public, but we're going to share it here just because it's probably valuable for people. So Angela's question is, basically, did we have to make any adjustments to try to get pregnant? Adjustments or recommendations to diet, exercise, supplements, sleep, stress, anything in order to help achieve pregnancy? And I'll let Emily take it, but I will tell you that we struggled to get pregnant.
Yeah, so yes, we made some adjustments, but as Pat said, this was not an easy journey for us. I think it ended up being at least 2 years for us to conceive, and a lot of heartbreak along the way. And I think that's another reason that I'm so relaxed is we've met with a lot of specialists and seen a lot of people and done a lot of tests, and we just kept being told by very top doctors who see a lot of infertility problems. There really is nothing that you can do outside of drugs and alcohol that's going to damage your child. I mean, they are so well protected. And so I did slow down for the last 2 years because I didn't want to leave anything on the table. For me, I just didn't want to look back and go, what if I worked out too hard? What if I was eating too clean? What if I put all this stress on my body? And that's the reason that I couldn't get pregnant. And
not eating too clean, but eating
too rigid, or maybe not enough, or whatever. So we did make some changes, and that being said, we still tremendously struggled, and I think that's what's so frustrating about conception sometimes is we've learned that health and wellness don't necessarily translate over perfectly to fertility. And I think that's why there's fertility doctors all around the country who can't figure out why some people can't get pregnant. And it is very frustrating. We were often left like, why isn't this working? We don't drink, we don't smoke, we're not overweight.
We're in like it would be, I'm sure we're like model specimens for like healthy people trying to have a baby, and it just didn't happen and didn't happen and didn't happen. And we went through some down in the dumps, tough, low, questioning everything moments. Like, it was not fun and for a long time. But, you know, kind of like you said, we stuck with it, you know, and thank goodness that, you know, she's pregnant now. But, you know, at first we thought, hey, 2 fit, healthy people that don't smoke, don't drink, you know, like, this is gonna be a cinch, you know. And when that didn't happen once or twice or 3 times or however long, month after month, then, you know, even though it was so mentally taxing, you know, like Emily said, we figured we've got to align the stars as much as we can control anyway to provide a positive outcome, so that, hey, if it doesn't work out, well, that's going to be horrible, and we're going to be super depressed and all that, but at least we won't be left wondering, well, I wonder if she still should try to, like, PR her Fran, you know, while we're doing it, you know, or should she try to have, like, lifted this, like, eye-popping front squat, which I just hear her screaming from her, new PR! Like, probably not what we want to have done to her body while we're trying to have this happen. And so we definitely took a more disciplined course.
And I questioned a lot, because there have been some games athletes who have come forward and talked about their own struggle with fertility. And so I questioned, did I damage my hormonal system during that time when I was training? You know, and I certainly
don't think anyone really knows.
Addressed that, right? And but I never stopped ovulating, and so probably not. I think that's the first thing to go, is, you know, if you start having you know, skipped periods and things like that. And I just never had that. I'm one of those really lucky people that has a baby and then somehow has my period the following month. So that has never been an issue. It wasn't an issue when I was a gymnast. I've always been very regular. So I don't know, but we definitely explored, and it was hard, like, thinking, what have I done, or where did I do something?
It was so tough. And again, it not, you know, just being honest and transparent. As much as, you know, I try very much, you know, personal development's a big part of what I do, so I try very much to keep my ego in check, to be a good person, to not judge others, to just, you know, focus on, you know, myself. It was really, I had some really tough moments during that. When you think you're doing what you think is right in this world, you think you're so healthy, you think it should happen, then you'll hear of your friends or see other people on Facebook or whatever that, from what you can tell from the photos, do not appear to be living such a healthy lifestyle. You know, either they're quite overweight, or every photo is them, you know, getting smashed at a Super Bowl party, you know, rip-roaring drunk, and they're like, we tried for 3 weeks and she's pregnant. And you're like, what? How? Like, it's so easy to just, like, want to yell out, like, that's not fair. You know, why is that happening for them and not happening for us? And it was tough. It was very, very tough.
It was tough, and I went into this pregnancy heavier than I've ever been, and probably the most out of shape in a while that I've been, because I needed to scale back for my own mental health. And so that was really challenging. I had some moments of tears even after I got pregnant, thinking, I am not going into this in the best mindset or best shape, and so now what is this going to look like on the other side? But that's to deal with later.
In the meantime, I'm taking advantage of it and beating her in workouts when I can. You know what I mean? Got to get it in. Okay, that was a great question, Angela, and hopefully that helps some folks. Final question, unless I've missed one, because I know some ones did roll in over the night that I don't know if you want to hit or not, I can't remember, but from Tim. And Tim asks, basically, he says, you know, he's a master's age athlete. Now, of course, this is a non-pregnancy question, but she's, you know, the competitor, so it's a good one for her to answer. Tim says, as a master's age athlete, what are the pros and cons if he's going to do like a local competition, and apparently there are divisions in that competition, right? So he is of the age that he has earned a spot to compete in the Masters division of the local competition if he wants, which might have a modification of the quote-unquote prescribed workout in some way, shape, or form. Or should he say, the heck with that, even though I'm a master and I could compete in that division in the local comp, the heck with it. I'm going full-blown open RX with all the young bucks and let the dice roll. So he says, what are the pros and cons, and what would enter your mind in that decision tree?
So I'm of the mindset, if you are a master, you've earned your spot there, why not take it? However,
here goes the competitive mindset.
I have seen some of the most ferocious competitors in the Masters division that I would not want to go up against. So I think that even if you sign up for the Masters, don't just necessarily be like, what's going to be an easier time. I am always shocked by what some of the 35 to 39-year-olds can do, and the 40 to 40. They're so competitive and so still very, very, very capable. But at least you're avoiding competing against 22-year-olds who recover so quickly. I think that's one thing that at least the Masters athletes tend to have in common, is you're not quite recovering like you did when you were 22 or 23 years old. So that might be a place for an advantage. And then you can commiserate together if, things start hurting that a 23-year-old cannot relate to you about.
But you're right, some of the Masters athletes, they're crazy. They're crazy. I mean, back when I would cover the sport, if you're going to be an individual competitor, you're crazy. Oh, good kind of crazy, but don't get me wrong, crazy. If you're going to be amazing and tip of the spear in some area, whether it's playing the piano or CrossFit, you're probably not living a balanced life. You're all in, focused to try to crush that thing. And then some of the Masters athletes, I don't know, the kids are out of the house, they got nothing to do. I mean, they were ferociously pouring their heart and souls into competing. So you will not get shortchanged, most likely, doing the Masters deal. Okay. Final, two questions. We'll end with two questions. We'll go pregnancy, then non-pregnancy. Pregnancy, from DeWalt W. My wife is 30 weeks pregnant with our second child. She stopped training when she hit 16 weeks because she was just too tired all the time. What advice would you give her to get her back into training after the baby is born? First of all, sir, you're treading in dangerous waters. if she's on the private Facebook group and sees you asking about how to get her butt back into training, you could be in some hot water. But if you're looking for some secret advice that you can massage in, here we go.
I don't have secret advice. I think much like I talked about the first pregnancy, I didn't work out much. I was having some issues and it was scary and I wasn't willing to do some of that. And so, she might be in that place as well. And if that is not a place that she's comfortable working out,
give her space.
I was going to say I make no judgments. If it's simply because she's tired, and it sounds like you already have another one, right? No? Oh, yes, second child.
Yep.
I get that. The boys are not even 2 years apart, and it's exhausting. And then you're pregnant again, and you have a small child. It's really tough. I mean, if she can somehow take the pressure off herself and even just twice a week work out, I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the mentality of it has to be perfect. So I have to train 5 hours or 5 days a week because that's what I set out to do. Maybe just a few days a week to try to get, I always feel better after I work out. I'm very tired and I don't want to. And then I work out and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I feel much better. It will just probably help on the other side with recovery and also almost learning how to train when you're exhausted, because it's, as we all know, it's certainly not going to get any easier once the baby's born. You're certainly not going to get less tired. So sometimes just going through the motions and to be able to say, I got something in today, I moved my body a little bit, it just helps. But each person is different, and I think that that's the important part too. Every family is different, every body is different.
And here's another little window into our personal life. I walk this tightrope a little bit as well. So just like she said, and that's the truth. If she does go out and do any sort of workout, doesn't matter if you had to scale it, modify it, reduce the intensity, doesn't want to walk out the door because obviously what's going on with her body and she's exhausted, but feels so much better after it's happened that she'll tell me, hey, look, I'm going to be tired during this pregnancy. I'm going to probably want to blow off a workout here or there. You need to tell me when I say I don't want to work out today. You need to tell me, remember, hon, you always feel so good. You should walk out and do it. What she's doing right there is handing me a live grenade with no pin in it. So I'm supposed to approach a pregnant woman on the couch and be like, hey, hon, you want to work out? And 4 out of 5 times, she's like, yeah, let's go do it. Then the one out of every 5 times, she goes, nah, I'm going to blow it off today. Now I have a predicament. In my head, now I'm holding the live grenade. In my head, I go, I'm supposed to now tell her that she should go work out. This isn't going to go well. So I will begrudgingly do it like, well, hey, just a friendly reminder. Remember you told me in these situations you would like to be reminded of the fact that you probably don't want to go out there, but you always feel so much better afterwards. And most of the time she'll be like, okay, and we'll go do it. Every now and then she'll be like, I appreciate you saying that. The answer's no. And when that happens, I have to go, roger that, and let her be. But that's the minority, But the overwhelming majority of the time, it's like, yeah, you're right, let's go do it. But every now and then, I'm sure she's just exhausted.
Yeah, I got into a vicious cycle in the first trimester. Nothing sounded good to eat, and so then I wouldn't eat, and then I would get sicker because I wasn't eating, and of course I didn't feel like working out. But once I got out there and started breathing, I always felt 1,000 times better, and then I was able to come in and eat something. So I can say that I have consistently worked out no less than 4 times a week from the beginning, which that did not happen with either of my other 2 pregnancies. The second pregnancy, I was so sick the first trimester, and so sick that when I did move, I would get terrible headaches that then would cause me to throw up because they were almost like migraine. So the first trimester was really hit or miss, and then I felt fine and kept moving.
Isn't pregnancy fun? That's why I like to say that, don't women like when they say that we're pregnant? As the guys say, we're pregnant. We're really going through something right now.
Some people absolutely love it, and I'm always jealous of them. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I'm so happy with the blessing that it is, but it's challenging.
Final question, non-pregnancy related, but specifically geared towards you, so I gotta take advantage of it when you're here.
If I don't answer the other question, people will be very upset.
What was the other question? Oh, geez, that's right. Okay. Okay, let's do that one, then we'll end on this one. So the other question, God bless it, it was basically, Levi, how dare you?
It's very sweet, the first part.
Basically, he's very kind words to say about me, and just wanted to know what's your favorite thing about what's your favorite thing about Pat without causing an argument, and your least favorite or pet peeve? I always get a good chuckle when Pat says he can feel you rolling your eyes during his 8 pages of notes or things like this. So, oh boy, this is going to be
It's not going to be bad. My favorite thing is my husband very much treats myself like a princess, my boys, very, very well. It's the little things. He tucks me in every night with a blanket, never forgets to bring the blanket over because our room is like Antarctica at night. He warms up my car for me, turns on my heat seaters. He makes a hot breakfast every single morning. So all of the little small things that he does throughout the day, they're wonderful.
There's the lead-in for the pet peeves.
No, he's just a very particular person.
It's an understatement.
So, not a super go with the flow. Things need to be planned, and he likes us certain meals and
Like things how I like things.
yes. He's very particular.
Which can make it very challenging for my wife, because I am very particular. Now it's probably a benefit to all of you in the CrossFit Linchpin community, because it's good to have somebody who's particular pouring through how to make workouts and warm-ups and goal time. So you get to benefit from me being just a crazy, particular lunatic. But my poor wife has to
Gets very upset with me if the gas tank goes below a certain level on the car, but I feel
Why would you let the gas?
that's what the gas light's for.
Why would you let the gas light come on? I don't understand. That's an emergency sort of a situation. Fill the darn thing up. And our youngest of the two boys has some.
Oh.
He's a particular young man as well.
If the grapes are too squishy, sends them back to the kitchen. If just all of that sort of stuff.
So he's a particular young man. So now and then Emily will be like, "Your youngest needs you. I don't understand this. You guys are so particular. You guys can figure it out." If I had to say one of the tougher things about myself, being very open and honest here, and I'll see if you agree or disagree with this, that I would think is a struggle for whoever has to be married to me. I can have a really hard time being present and in the moment. You know, like I can't shut my brain off a lot, you know, and so if we're supposed to just be having dinner together or be on a fun vacation and like be quote unquote stress-free and disconnected from work. There's what I struggle with, being disconnected from work. I am not very good at that. You know, we could be like Disney before they shut it down or whatnot, and between rides and, you know, the kids are on some ride and Emily will come over to say something to me and I mentioned to her something that I have for like a new t-shirt design idea, and she's like, "Are you kidding me right now? We're at Disneyland, our kids are here and you're talking to me about like a t-shirt design that's in your head. Like, relax, we're here right now, be here. You've got plenty of time to work." But I've always struggled with shutting my brain off, quite frankly. So I'm sure that is also very frustrating.
Yeah, it's also a good thing. I think somebody who's constantly, you know, looking to improve things or change things or better things, it's always a good thing instead of just being stuck in a rut. But yes, I can tell sometimes I'll be talking to him and he's gone, and then I'm like, okay, we'll revisit this conversation at a later time.
So yeah, it's I would label myself as a challenging person to be.
You are not. He is not a challenging person. He's a wonderful person to be married to.
Okay, so final question is from Levi. It's for you. And on a previous podcast, we talked about how you were open and honest about how, you know, you did gymnastics for Lord knows how many years, and you went through a period of like extreme burnout, and you were over it and didn't know if you wanted to just hang it up and walk away. So his question was, Pat talked on a podcast about you getting burned out from gymnastics over the years. What do you think brought you back after those breaks? And do you think if you were competing in other sports or activities, it would have helped you not get burned out? And just the topic of burnout, be it in CrossFit or anything else, I think has benefits. So I wanted to make sure we hit this question before we were done.
So I've had periods of burnout more than once. I had a full-blown burnout. I walked away from the sport of gymnastics as a sophomore in high school, 1 year away from signing my letter of intent for college. So you can imagine what that did for my parents, who invested a lot of time and money and energy. And they were so wonderful in how they handled it. And they truly did step back and say, and I was very injured at the time as well, but they stepped back and they let me figure it out. I wanted to be a regular high school student and athlete. I joined the track team, and then I realized that I wasn't missing much. I just wasn't missing a lot of life, if you will, that I missed my life in the gym, and I knew that I was on the cusp of doing something that I had wanted to do my entire life. So I went back. It was tough. I ended up having 5 surgeries on one leg that following year. So it was a tough year. So then after college, because I was so beat up and injured dealing with all of the leg issues that I had, I again burned out when I was done and wanted nothing to do with exercise. And so didn't do anything for about a year. And I got heavy, and I also struggled with finding out who I was outside of something that I had done my entire life. And so that was really challenging as well, and just one of those moments, those life growing moments. And then, you know, I got back into exercise because I missed it, and I missed how I felt, and I missed, you know, feeling comfortable in my own skin. And I ran and I don't know, worked out at a Globo gym, and then I found CrossFit. And after the games that I competed 2 years, I had another moment of burnout, and that other, you know, another step of what now? And that was a tough year anyway. I was in a terrible relationship. I went through a divorce. And I think for me, I had some life figuring out to do. And I think I looked back and was like, I think I poured myself into CrossFit because it was my drug, if you will, to really avoid what was going on at home. But I didn't want to sacrifice anymore the things that I was sacrificing, mainly my children, for CrossFit. So I really was okay with being done and content with being done. What I struggled with the most and where I was burnt out was I didn't know how to just be a regular person in the gym and work out the way that we all work out, you know, for an hour a day and have it be what it is for that day. I struggled for a couple of years, you know, not doing competitors training anymore, not doing a weightlifting session in the morning and then coming back and doing stuff in the afternoon. It took me a few years to really figure out and be at peace with just doing one workout a day, and sometimes not the most intense workout. But you just have to go on your journey, I guess, and keep showing up in order to get yourself there. I don't know.
All right, well, and just like that, we had an hour. Great. I already saw somebody comment that they wish we would do this more frequently. I'd like to have you on every now and then. So maybe, you know, we keep giving her a positive experience. Maybe I could talk her into this again. And it would actually make sense if right now, you know, you're at the 17 or 18 week part of the pregnancy to check in. I don't know what would make sense. Every 5 weeks, every 10 weeks or something, and just see, has the list of movements that we're not doing increased or decreased? You know, what's changed? How do you feel? And so we probably will continue to do these check-ins through the pregnancy. And then it would also make sense maybe every 4 to 6 weeks post-pregnancy, because I'm sure that's what a lot of women are curious. How's the road back? And so that will be a journey.
I can't even think about it right now.
So that's it. It's a Thursday. Enjoy your rest day, everybody. Like I said, Emily and I need to do the workout that was programmed yesterday because we got distracted at Costco. So that'll be our day. Enjoy, and we will talk again later.